How are you?
Good, good. It's a bit cold here, but
Yes,
probably not as cold as in France. I
yes,
wonder.
it's starting to be quite cold here as well. Huh? I'm glad we speak again. Huh? It's been a while, and it's always a pleasure to speak about art and with you, and to see your perspective of how you create and your inspiration. I have I have few questions to ask you, but first of all, maybe you have something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to collaborate with you on this project.
Hmm.
It's been getting really interesting responses from my friends and those whom I tell, that we're doing this, and everybody's pretty supportive and supportive and excited. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool project. So hopefully, gets people to wear these beautiful arty helmets with artist's art everywhere. Someone actually had told me today that in Los Angeles, because of the pandemic and because of the traffic in LA, there are more and more motorcyclists, people who are switching from cars to
Yes,
motorcycles.
it makes
So
sense. It's part of the post COVID effect. It's people are shifting the way they used to be mobile, and now it's more individual. It's a way as well to protect yourself, I guess.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, if you can also add sort of individuality to your gear, that's even more
Yes,
fun.
have something more personal that fits to your style or to your state of mind as well. It's also part of House of Helmet spirit. Precisely,
Yeah.
yes. Maybe we should before we start to speak about your artwork. It's interesting to speak about your background. You arrived in America. You had 16, and
Yeah.
you I've seen that you study different things as well. You went from biological science to fine art, and then you were interested in as well in architecture. It's quite a different perspective. I mean that you had uh, the choice that you made to the choice of study that you did. It's interesting, and now when you think of what you did next, it's totally makes sense that you're a multidisciplinary artist, and when the first time I looked at your website, I was really surprised of discovering so much variety, not only about the technique, but also the use of traditional media and the new and mixing and creating something completely different. It was quite impressive. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think the more experiences we have and the more exposure to different things we have, it builds, and it kind of, a lot of times it is more obvious how it makes into your work, and sometimes it's unexpected turns and twists into how things are shaped in our vision and our understanding of events and past and present and future. But yeah, I mean, we immigrated as a family to the US in in '94, and I studied a lot of different things. Like started with biology.
Mm-hmm.
I've always doing art. I went to art school when I was a kid back in Ukraine. We came from Ukraine. And this sort of love for making things and creating something with your hands and kind of
Yeah, it's
philosophy.
funny that you use the word. There is three words that I kept in mind in the process of in your process of creation. It's deconstruct, flattened, and reassemble. It's something really interesting. It's a way for you to make something from something existing. You reappropriate it, and then you build it, you rebuild it in your own way. In
Yes,
a way.
I think that's what happens, right? When
Hmm.
we're creating. I mean, of course, we all want to um, make something. Well, I don't want to say all, but I always want to make something totally new, something that I have not done myself.
Hmm.
But of course, all of your sort of all of my experiences, they feed into how I, approach every piece or a medium or how I look at someone else's work even. Uh, and yeah, there's always this sort of idea. I think it's probably heritage, like in terms of, constructing or deconstructing something, the heritage that comes from sort of and it's already really dated, but very relevant.
Hmm.
The Russian avant-garde, right? I mean, it's if you think about it, it's already 100 years old, and it's still feeding our minds. It's still kind of tackling, our understanding of the absolutely modern, minimal approach, the vision to the arts, and to the world as a whole. So I think that really kind of informs my work a lot. The kind of the visionaries of that time, and there's a lot of that in my pieces. And then of course I deviate and I do other things that kind of feed back into work. Um, but kind of going back to my study. You say it like a studying pathway, which
Yes, from your study pathway and also your origin, I find it uh, um, interesting and surprising as well that you managed to kept a part of your uh, in French we say patrimoine, um, something that comes from your roots. I mean, the fact that you quote three abstract artists from Soviet Union. Um, it's I find it made me think. Would I be able to do the same? And I'm born in France, and my background are from Morocco, and my all my education is French. So it's really it's great that you are able to quote and to keep in touch with your roots and find inspiration from there. I find it great, and the one that you inspired with. I want to speak as well about them because the three of them, Tatlin, Malevich, or Lisitsky, it's about suprematism. That's what you're. That's what I'm discovering, and it's also a movement that I haven't heard about it, and maybe you want to speak about it as well.
uh, yeah, we can. Not quite ready for these, but
Yeah. The definition I found about it, it's really interesting. It's about abstract art that is based on a pure artistic feeling, and it's in a way it's uh, it's like giving the access to it to everybody. Vulgarisation. No, no, it's not. It's it's a way to give yeah, access
It
to
is a
everybody.
reaction, maybe to sort of the mainstream kind of the
Hmm.
objective, right?
Yes.
The fine arts of the time, and then there was a big movement to kind of exactly what you're saying, bringing art back to its roots and
Hmm.
back to the people. Well, getting inspiration from the uh, kind of the, I don't want to say nationalistic art, but sort of the Russian. What is the Russian? The folk art, right? And there was a big movement in at the time, like at the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century, right before the Soviet Revolution, well,
Hmm.
or the number of them that happened. There was this really interesting movement that wanted to kind of look back into the people's art, right? Like what is the art that people are creating, rather than you know, the aristocratic sort of manicured world. And there's this other kind of the folk uh, view of like maybe decorative arts and things like that. So there were, well, I'm saying one movement. No, there were actually a number of movements in Russia at the time, artistic movements that looked at that art. And then out of that, I think grew another, like a really potent art movement that's become the Russian avant-garde
Hmm.
that we sort of in we know, and the West sort of became to recognize it, that dealt with kind of minimalism, also a lot of design ideas, the Industrial Revolution. So that fed into Eldisitsky's work and Tatlin's work, where they, you know, were building a tower, a flying machine, things like
Yeah.
that. And then Malevich, of course, worked actually closely with Chagall before Chagall immigrated to France. But they were sort of working together. And Malevich was, through suprematism, he actually moved all the way to completely removing any objects, right? And putting this sort of devoid of, you know, any imagery art. And there are, of course, many things that kind of fed into many things feeding and then kind of removing that information, and looking at art for art's sake, you know, just a painted red or white or black square, and looking at them and kind of with all this sort of emotion, right? That and placing it sort of in the corner, like an Russian religious icon. So this is it's sort of become become a new religion, right? Like this visual art, and I think it's so deep and so uh, rich, right? Like those views that people discussed. There was the change in society, the change in political change, lots of instability, World War I. I mean, all of these things, and visual artists kind of taking it in and putting some like really strong work out. So I think it's still feeding me. It was a big inspiration to Zaha Hadid, right? Now she passed away 2 years ago, but a great architect, UK, from UK,
Hmm.
and she had so much inspiration in 70s, 80s, like a lot of her art, and of course architecture later on, became like sort of the next step. But she really took a lot of inspiration from Malevich specifically, but also the other artists that were working in the same stream, I guess, of the time. So yeah, I mean, it's super interesting to read about them and look at their work. And I think what mostly inspires me in their work is their boldness, because they created such a change at the time that
And you
yeah,
can
I'm all,
really feel it in the constructivism from those Soviet artists. You can really feel the avant-garde style. It's completely different from what was at the beginning of the 20th century. Oh, there is a
yeah,
question, by the way. There is someone who asking, what made you switch to fine art?
yeah, I saw that. I never switched out of fine art. I was always doing fine
Mhm.
art. Uh, yeah, I mean, I was an immigrant. It's a typical story, right? Where you got to get the go in the footsteps of let's say my grandma, who was a doctor. So I was going to become a doctor. But when I was in school, it's a great system in American schools, and I actually don't quite know how it works in the West, but I know it doesn't work like that. Didn't work like that in Soviet sort of structure of a higher education. If you went to become a physicist, you went to a
Mhm.
specific technical institute and you become a physicist, or you become a mathematician or an economist, or yeah. But here I went to a liberal arts school, and as a biology major initially, and I mean, I did complete my studies. I finished them in 3 years, and you usually do it in four. And then while I was kind of towards the end of my studying biology, I was like, well, I was really missing art. I kept on, painting and drawing in my free time. But then I, went to the other side of the campus, which had like I was in the biology school part, and then there was an arts uh, part of campus, and so I started taking classes there. It's like I'm going to take a painting class, or I'm going to take a drawing class, and it kind of sucked me in because, of course, I loved it, and it never really just love for making. For painting, drawing, never went away. So yeah, so at one point I had enough classes to declare a minor. You can do that. You can say, okay, I've completed enough classes to have a minor. And as I was at the end of it, I was like, well, I may take a few more classes. I stayed and I finished it as a major, two majors. And then I was deciding,
You
okay,
get
I need to,
hooked.
what's
You get
that?
hooked.
I mean, yeah, I was cooked, but right. I mean, you have to pay for it. I took some loans, of course, but
Mhm.
it's a bit scary when you're in a new country. You don't know the system, how things work, but you kind of discover them that it's all right. You can make it
Let's
work.
speak
So,
about the artwork that you did for House of Helmet. Um, um,
I'll do it.
yeah. Mhm. I I I remember. No, it was together. We chose together the artwork. It's
Oh, there.
yes, it's this one. It's name Gotcha.
Yeah, you can see, so it's a
Mm-hmm.
paper cut,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it's I have it. Oops, I have it on double. So you can see here, it's
Yeah,
actually painted vellum,
it's
and I just do Jackson Pollock on the back, just throwing paint and having fun. Um, And yeah, and there's a paper cut on top of it, so it kind of gives it a certain shape, look, feel. And I don't know if you can see, a lot of times I point out to people, but I don't know if you can you see, there's a female figure, like you can see the
Mm-hmm.
nude breasts, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a head, and then there are arms, and then there's another female figure, but she's upside down. I don't know if you can see the nose here and the eye, and then the hair.
It's like one lady is reaching out
Mhm.
the other one.
They are They're basically, I mean, the idea is that they're basically, one is holding the other, but it's, this way or the other way. If you turn the work
Mm-hmm.
upside down, right, like 180 degrees, it would be the same thing. They're kind of like holding each other. One is hanging and relying, like you can see the hand, right? Like you can see the sort of the
And the head,
fingers.
yes.
So she's holding her by the shoulders almost. So yeah, so they're supporting each other in a way.
How did you how do you proceed to make it? Do you draw first, or do you work directly on the computer?
Yeah, it's both. There's a lot of, yes, a lot of it is drawn in the computer.
Hmm.
And let me show you actually. Let me take you sort of the messy studio here. Let's show you this. Um, there's some.
I love the
I think.
description that you make on Gotcha. You say each figure which occupy the construction are also brought together for a reason, supporting for one another.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's important to reach
It's
out.
yes, and it
Mhm.
works for both. Literally, and because it's a layer of paper cut, and
Mhm.
so it's supporting each other, and also about the meaning. Gotcha.
Yeah,
On
yeah,
hmm.
exactly. It's like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Oh, I've got you.
Hmm.
It's such. I don't know if in British English this kind of phrase, but I always feel like it's such an American. Gotcha. Don't worry. Or,
Yeah, it works
there
for English as well.
there's some pieces like this one too. I can show you. Um, this one's called bundled up actually. If you can see the figure. A lot of people start with the feet. So there's a foot here, and then they sort of travel, and then they realize, oh, there's a figure. So, um, yeah, this is somewhat inspired by um, a lot of kind of homelessness on the streets and people
Hmm.
sort of sitting bundled.
It looks like a giant insect.
What's that? Oh, giant insect. Yeah, there's some exoskeleton kind of I mean, allusions possibly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Some of these cutouts maybe allude to a cityscape. Um, so yeah, this one, and there's a piece here. This one is oh, what's the title? It's basically my daughter. She loves this piece. She's like, this is me. It's a girl and kind of drawing the curtains opening up and discovering the world, the city.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but I'm blanking out on the title. That's funny. Let's see what else I can show you in paper cuts. I pulled out some work here too. This is some of the new pieces I did in the beginning of this year. Um, these are starting to be like really abstract. I have no figuration in here. But I think this one is so delicate. Like I love sort of the
I
greens
like the
and a little bit of
organic.
yellow.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, it's delicate.
Um, yeah, so I make these backgrounds. There's some older work I have here that is paper cut, too, and it's very, very, very large. I don't know if you can see it. This one's 8 feet. Um, and they have no color background to them. Originally, I was just really intrigued, and I think it comes from sort of architecture, a lot of cutting and kind of constructing, working with paper model making. Yeah, so I really like the sort of the minimal look to it that only has the background and yeah, and you just see through the cut. It's positive, negative kind of space that you can. It's the background that makes the drawing, but it's the foreground that is actually cut.
Both are working together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I think. That's what's really kind of intriguing to me in paper cuts.
Are you doing any exhibition at the moment?
I have a show. I had one really large show. I had over 35 works, and that just came down.
Yeah.
And that was in Bay Area, in Redwood City. Mostly, I show around in Bay Area. And I have a smaller show that's about 10 pieces here on Fillmore Street in San Francisco. So I can show you this one. This one has no background yet. I'm not sure if I want to, but you can see the shipyard in the back. Shipyard, that's where the studios are. We have a large, it's called Hunters Point Shipyard Artist Community. It's located on the former shipyard naval base here. Yeah. So now we're in the former barracks, basically. There's another piece here. So I have a few pieces that are kind of laying out, ready to be done with something.
Oh, it's beautiful. I like the leaves effect. It's similar to the green one with this organic pattern.
Yeah, I for some reason I started doing these sort of kind of medallion, like circular works. Yeah, there's something cool about that. And yeah, so the green one started as such too, but it's kind of an incomplete circle. So there's the other parts of there's the other parts of the circle, but it's become almost like, I don't know, started to look, once I kind of look at it, it almost looks like a body. Or
it looks like a part of body to me, like a corset. You know the corset, the one that we in the old time.
Yeah, completely unintentional though. But yep. Things you kind of start looking. So I can also show you, I have a bunch of drawings, pastel drawings.
To give an example of prices, to be a little bit more pragmatic, the one that you showed me, the huge one, paper.
Oh, this one.
Yes.
Yeah, this one.
A number?
Can I check with my?
Sure. Yes, otherwise I'll add. Like I said before we started the live, I post on the story the link of the access to see artwork of you, Gotcha, and I will add just after the live another story with the link of this artwork if you want.
Okay, yeah, that would be cool. That would be good. Yeah, it definitely needs a home. It's looking for a, but in terms of finance, I think it's best to
Hmm.
to refer to the site. I have a few large ones here too. I mean, I can't open them now, but there are a few more in
Hmm.
there. They're slightly smaller, 6 feet, but and they're different. Well, I call them process drawings. They're different cuts, different compositions, but it's all on my website. You can, yeah, someone can browse through if they have questions. They can ask
Yeah,
me questions.
I like this
Um,
one. It's massive. It gives another dimension to the paper cut. It's kind of
yeah,
raw, and at the
it's
same
a
time,
scale.
there is something. Uh, I'm tempted to say religious somehow.
Meditational,
Yeah, probably.
something spiritual.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Spiritual is more appropriate.
I hope so. I
Mhm.
hope, one can look at it and
Mhm.
exert a lot of sort of meaning and, calmness or conflict or, I mean, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen sort of organic. I mean, the figure is in this sort of,
Mhm.
mm, or organic forest, or something. And I feel like this piece is kind of like an explosion. It's almost like a birth of a flower through sort of a violent act
Yeah,
where
there
it's
is
kind of
many things
exploding.
happening
And then
in this
it
paper
just,
cut.
yeah.
It's all over the place. It's and in the central character as well as its own importance as well.
Yeah,
There is
and well,
something
the
going
character
on.
also uh, has sort of a reference to Venus de Milo, the
Oh.
one that you have in Louvre.
Mhm.
As somewhat, I'm not I don't have a lot of pretense, but so the figure has no arms. It does have a head though, right?
Mhm.
But it's kind of a little bit uh, like moving forward, I guess. So yeah, so I was thinking of the sort of female beauty of the female figure, and as it's seen in sort of the Western art, and yeah, yeah, that sculpture kind of kept coming into my mind. So um,
I
yeah, so
can
that was
understand why. Mm.
yeah, yeah, it's amazing when I remember seeing it, but
Mhm.
of course Nike in Louvre is much more impressive. At least its
It's
location
different.
in the museum is definitely, when you're coming up the stairs, you almost feel like you're flying to it. I can show you some more work I have in my outside of my studio. There's a corridor, and I have some work here. So these are all drawings, soft pastels, and yeah, I have this one's, for example, called Illuminated. I
Is
can
there any chronological order? The way you is it like era? You had your period of
certain type of drawing.
drawing, and then certain
Yeah.
type of.
Sometimes I work in series, but then I get bored
Mhm.
after maybe like 3, 4 pieces, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to move on. So I had this kind of idea about the folded paper, like sort of, kind of like a folded plane in a way, and then inserting figures into it. And I have a number of pieces that deal with it, and that was all this year. I
Mhm.
kind of started with a piece that's similar to this one, and I just felt like I wanted to do a few more. And so yeah, I have a number of pieces that deal specific, and I still change sort of colors a little bit here and there because I get yeah too bored very fast. But let's see, and then after that sort of folded paper, I made this piece. I don't know if you can tell. This was almost like a culmination of that really, say maybe like really graphics, super flat. with a lot of outline drawings for a time, I think. So this one is called Poetry Reading, and there are two figures, and if you can tell, it feels like the lighting is not great. But there's a female figure that's standing, and then there's a sitting male figure, and they're both holding something like iPads, like kind of like electronic devices. Like he's definitely holding, and then she has it kind of against her face, against her head. Yeah, so I felt like that was, yeah, there's kind of a lot of the kind of graphic quality to it. That's sort of the response I've been getting from people. But yeah, a lot of work is kind of bounces between being sort of flat and projecting some kind of space. I mean, there's always a sort of horizon line in my drawings. Almost always. I shouldn't say always because, yeah. And yeah, there are figures inserted, sometimes more pronounced, sometimes kind of abstracted, just sort of the head and the body. Yeah, I mean, there's this, I mean, I'm working on this piece now. Let me put the light on, actually. I don't know if you can tell. Probably not. Can you?
Not
Something. It's just so it's on pencil right now. There is, you can probably, yeah, this is kind of drawn very vividly. There's a hand.
So this
like
is where
a finger going like kind of like a religious, some kind of a priest telling you don't do it, and the God will punish you if you do such and such. So again, it's a female figure, and she's sitting, and she's kind of disjointed, like her whole body is sort of collapsed. I don't think it's anatomically accurate in the way she's sort of drawn. And then there's this pattern. There's this pattern that I'm bringing from my paper cuts. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and finally I'm giving myself a chance to do it. So there's this sort of, they're not cutouts, but I might create them as, and they're kind of like these cellular, maybe they're cells, and then they become her, the piece will be called a string of pearls. They become her jewelry. And they also contain, like some of these cells contain the sort of the bullets, like the shooting bullets. So it has to do with a lot of mass shootings, this particular piece, with the mass shootings in the US, kind of like the epidemic. During COVID, actually, there has not been there has not been that many mass shootings, especially school shootings, of course. So the kids are at home, no school shootings, which is, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, this COVID shelter in place thing.
And that's true.
So
you like to speak about social, political, or not only personal aspect in your painting.
Definitely. I mean, almost every piece I make, it has some kind of a social or political commentary, definitely. Well, how can we separate ourselves? I mean, sometimes people say, oh, this work is apolitical. I don't think it's ever true. Yes. Even intentionally or unintentionally, if you're creating this piece in a certain time, in a certain climate, you inadvertently are influenced by what's around you as a visual, as any artist, musician.
And if we are not, there is the reader itself has his own way of seeing it. And
they bring their own, of course, bring their own readings. Yeah. Yeah, so this one is a funky one. It's just one of my
I can see that.
It's a cake. Yeah, it's called mud cake.
Experimenting.
Experimenting, yeah. There was actually there is. He just celebrated 100 years. Thybod. He's a Bay Area artist. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his first name. Yeah, well, so he's a quite famous painter. in Bay Area, and he had done a lot of
Wow.
food. He had painted a lot, lots of food, like cakes and donuts and lots of like really kind of beautiful, sort of seductive oil paintings
Of food.
yeah, bakery and things like that. So I don't know. I felt like I needed to make
So
a
it's
mud cake.
like a provocative painting that you're doing.
Uh, in what sense? This particular one, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like you can see, it's mud. We're all in mud, and there are little people kind of looking at it. I don't know if they want to eat it or they're just admiring it on the platter. I'm not sure what's happening. Um, yeah, so there's another one. It's another experiment with more of a perspectival kind of lava-like lake of we had lots of fires in California this summer.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, this piece was sort of inspired, if you can say inspired by those fires, definitely informed, I should
Mm-hmm.
say. And so we made a trip to Yellowstone in September, and there were huge fires. It was kind of like an escape. It was impossible to breathe here. There was just so much smoke. So we took a road trip, and we went to Yellowstone. And when we came back, so I made this piece before we left. And when we came back, it happened so that there was so much smoke in the air that the whole atmosphere turned orange.
Yes, I
Uh,
remember that.
yeah, and I actually am working also on a piece that's called Orange Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was on Wednesday, so we come back on Tuesday night. We sleep, and in the morning I wake up, and the whole sky is
It was
this
terrible. Huh? Mm.
dark orange, brown, gray. It was just so apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a title for this piece when I worked on it, but I retitled it, and this was before we left. So this kind of like this fiery landscape was not as bad. It was horrible, right? But it wasn't as bad as when we came back to that orange atmosphere. So this is, yeah, it's kind of that.
I
Uh,
think this one can even work upside down.
yeah, it's possible. Maybe
Yeah.
vertically too. There are the two figures here, kind of,
Mhm.
but yeah, the whole world is
With
yeah,
the
maybe the sky.
orange,
I
like
see what you're saying,
the
orange
way you
sky.
describe it, it's yes. It's
Yeah.
I've never seen such a thing in my life. This orange,
You
yeah.
know, people in Australia were posting their pictures oh, they also had huge fire, like lots and lots of burning.